All right, we're live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a very special guest. He's publishing a book next week. Title of the book is New Age Grifter, The True Story of Gabriel of Urantia and His Cosmic Family. And the author's name is Joseph L. Flatley. He's also published two other books. One is Sirhan, or The Hallucinatory Vanguard, published 2018 in February. And Satan Goes to the Mind Control Convention, Manchurian Candidates' Recovered Memories and the Dark Side of Conspiracy Culture, published in November 2018. But again, this book is about a character, and it covers kind of the arc of his life all the way to the present. A guy by the name of, who goes by the name of Gabriel, but whose original name was not Gabriel, but he can talk more about that. So, Joseph Flatley, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for agreeing to the interview. For people who may not have heard of your background, can you talk about what you wrote about in your earlier books and what led you to write this book, New Age Grifter?
Yeah, I'm a journalist, an author, and based in Pittsburgh, which is great because I don't think I could do this if I lived in Manhattan or Los Angeles or something. But yeah, my work has always just kind of revolved around fringe culture, obscure topics, whatever interests me really. And my current book, New Age Grifter, is really a 4 or 5 year long process of meeting ex-members of this spiritual community in the desert in Arizona called the Global Community Communications Alliance, which is a mouthful. And I met some of these guys online, and we started, I basically came to have a relationship with this like subculture of or small community of former members of this high control group. And after talking to them for a few years, we decided it was time to write a book. So in 2018, I actually recorded a podcast, like an 8-piece investigative series about the group and about the leadership and just kind of what it's like to be in a cult, basically. And then this year it's coming out as a book.
Gotcha. And the eight episode series was what? So-called Prophet from Pittsburgh. Is that what
That's
you titled?
correct. Yep. Yeah. It's still out there.
And you, the cosmic, people who were involved with Gabriel, they kind of reached out to you after you posted something on YouTube, right?
Yeah. So I just had for some reason I didn't see this as a story. Now this guy, Gabriel of Urantia, his real name's Tony. He's from Pittsburgh. And he's kind of a failed musician. And when that didn't work out, he changed his name to Gabriel, moved to Sedona. Next thing you know, he has like multiple partners, and he's got a compound, and they own a radio station in Tucson that just plays his music over and over. So a friend of mine got back from Arizona and was like, you got to hear this band, and played me some of this cult leader's music. And it was terrible and hilarious. And I just posted a little YouTube video making fun of it. I took clips from his music videos and made one of those old K-Tel record commercials. And I got contacted by an ex-member, and he said, you think this guy's crazy, but you don't know the half of it. So we started talking, and we spoke for years, and he hooked me up with people that used to be in the community. And then in, I think late 2018, December 2018, I finally got to talk to Gabriel's daughter. She had left the community, I think a year earlier, but had been not ready to really talk. But at this point, she felt like she wanted to tell her story to the world. And we spoke. She trusted me. So I ended up going to Arizona and interviewing her and other ex-members, and other places in the country interviewing ex-members. Actually went to one of the community's services. They have semi-public services. They're public services, but to get there, you have to be let into the compound and frisked, and they charge you $50. But I did it, and I got to see the whole thing firsthand.
Right. And it was 4 hours long, right?
Oh yeah, it was ridiculous. The first hour was the worst, most dubious, end of the world videos of landslides and UFOs and just the craziest of that stuff, and ancient aliens type stuff. And all with the message that this is happening now, and if you leave the compound, you're not safe. Which, I think to the outside observer seemed really silly, but if you're in there and you don't have any other real media, the stuff's probably really scary. And then after an hour of that, it just became like a church service. They talked about the Urantia book, which is this like new age spiritual text, and just droned on and on for like 4 or 5 hours. And, it was a struggle to stay awake.
But so he has this kind of Urantia book, but he's from Pittsburgh. His real name is Anthony J. Devlin, or that's his born name.
Right.
But he came up through Christian ministry and kind of morphed into this Urantia character. Can you talk about his early life before he transformed into Gabriel of Urantia?
Sure. He always seemed to be some kind of seeker. He always seemed to want to, you know, lord power over people, basically. Like, even when he was a young man, he had a bar band. He really always wanted to be a musician, and like, and he like put out like, I have a copy of like a fake press release that he put out saying, I just got back from, being on tour in Europe and stuff. So it's like, he always had a little that con artist, I think, in my opinion. And as he grew up, he kind of went through all these different spiritual paths, trying to look for an angle. So he was raised Catholic, so he kind of went through the Catholic, I can't remember the name of it now, but there's like a movement within Catholicism, which is like evangelical, where they like speak in tongues and all that stuff.
Right.
And he was kind of in the ground floor of that. And then he became more of a born again Christian and worked his way across the country, working for different Christian ministries, starting his own ministry in Tucson in like 78. It was called Sunlight Ministries. And it was a kind of a street ministry, homeless ministry, but also, gathering disciples and interested in really bizarre offshoots of Christianity that occurred in the 70s, where people tried to, lord power over their followers. And that didn't work out. So he discovered the Urantia book, which is, like I said, this new age text.
Can you describe for the listener how important the Urantia book is? Because I was looking at your book on Amazon, and it's the number one in the category of Urantia. So it has its own category within the New Age.
Right.
Maybe people haven't heard of that. Can you kind of talk? You do talk about the background of the book, but can you explain that to the listener, please?
Oh, sure thing. It's a channeled text. They wouldn't call it channeled, but essentially this kind of philosopher, psychiatrist, eugenicist named William Sadler, who lived in Chicago. Starting in the 1920s, he had a study group, and the origin story is that he met a man who spoke in his sleep, and when he was asleep, he like kind of answered truths about the universe. And so this William Sadler and his study group got together, asked this guy a bunch of questions about the nature of reality, and whatever he said, they wrote down. And I mean, it's actually pretty funny. They're like going to him with all these questions, which really they're just giving the questions to William Sadler, and William Sadler is coming back with the answers. So, you tell me who you think is really writing this book.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
And then like after a while, like the sleeping man was like apparently, quote unquote, like sick of talking in his sleep. So he just gave the answers to Sadler, like already typed up and ready to go. And this study group in Chicago went through years and years of reading these texts and kind of synthesizing them and editing them down. And it turned into a 2,000-page tome called The Book of Urantia, which purports to tell, the reality of life and the universe, and kind of goes through a lot of stuff that would be very unfamiliar to most people, because about stuff taking place on other planets, allegedly, with different spirits and celestial entities. And then But the last half of the book is kind of like, or the last part of the book is a retelling of Christianity, of Jesus's life. So in that way, it's kind of like the Book of Mormon. And
Yeah, it has like the space opera element to it, right? Kind of like the Book of Mormon or Scientology. That's what it reminded me of. Is there
yeah,
was another gods and other entities with names, and these people, and there's kind of like people are being, past lives and all kinds of crazy stuff for millions of years.
yeah, and it's very much in line with like a modern American space religion, really, like Scientology or Nation of Islam. And but the one interesting characteristic about the book, which I think is unique and pretty remarkable, is that it's very non-hierarchical, non-authoritarian. There's no priests or popes in Urantia. You either read the book and you're Urantia reader, or you don't, and you're not. What Gabriel has done is he's taken the teachings of Urantia, just the space opera you mentioned, the names and the cosmic deities and stuff, and adapted to them to his own belief system that he's been working on for 30 years. And his is very hierarchical. So it's really the opposite. He's at the top. His elders in the community are underneath that. Everybody has a place, everybody has a ranking, people above you get to boss you around. So he's taken this thing that's the antithesis of a high control group and created a high control group out of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So he changed his name, and he said that he was beamed into a space vessel. So he has, he has his own kind of prophetic stance, and the world is coming to an end soon. But like you mentioned in the book, he doesn't mention it. He's smart enough not to mention an exact time, but it's on its way. It's right around the corner. So you got to really watch out. So he has a lot of similarities with other cult teachers, and you mentioned Rick Allen Ross and all these other things. So you can see him with, at least in my opinion, within some of these other control groups that are like the bite model of Steve Hassan or something like that.
Yeah, and the question that always comes up, and a question I heard a lot from followers, former followers, because they kind of, they were on the outside for a few years, but they really hadn't had a chance to talk to many people about their experience. And they always wonder what I think as far as like, how does Gabriel learn this stuff? Like, is he, reading books by other groups, or is he, did he, a lot of people, I don't think this is the case, but there are a few people in the negative network, which is the name of the former members, that their little community, that think that it must be like a CIA mind control experiment or something, just because, and it's a real valid question. How does somebody go from nothing to really just having a brilliant like grasp on like controlling people and dictating people's lives? And I just think, sometimes it's just a gift.
Well, he's been working on it. He's been in those groups probably from the very beginning when he was 25 to the present. So he's seen all the elements just from firsthand experience. And a lot of these guys, they are kind of like, I mean, I'm not saying he's a con man, but they learn from their experience to see what's the best levers to pull and how to work on stuff. And they've also accumulated significant amount of financial assets, correct?
Yes, they this whole, I mean, any alternative lifestyle community, you're going to have the question of how do you make money? Like, do you go out into the world and make money and risk having lose control over your followers, or do you keep them locked up tight in the compound, and then somebody's got to go out and work? So they've started a number of businesses or cottage industries, which is obviously common in cults, also obviously common with any religious community. Got monks that make bread, that kind of thing.
Right.
Gabriel, they tried a lot of different things. The ones that kind of took over the years. The main one is called Solistic Hospice, and they actually operate a hospice in Tucson and Southern Arizona. So, if your loved one's dying or on their deathbed, you can have a cult minister come in and take care of them.
All covered by Medicaid, right? All covered by Medicaid.
Exactly. Essentially paid for by the taxpayer. And, from talking to people in Sedona and Tucson, I've been told that they're kind of like the hospice of last resort. Like if no one else will take your family member for whatever reason, they're more than happy to. And they just, started a hemp farm and just had, I think, their first or second crop of hemp. So, if you're growing hemp, you're almost minting your own money. It's such a good cash crop. So
Gotcha.
yeah, they got money, and maybe not Scientology money, but if you work for somebody for 30 years and they never pay you,
Right.
that can accumulate pretty big numbers there.
Right, and that's really kind of the thing is the hook for people is that you can live there free, but they also said they want you to. I mean, it's kind of a trick is make sure that your credit's ruined so you can never leave, right?
Well, yeah, it's funny. They have an ad on their radio station where they're like trying to attract followers, and it's like, the guy comes in with his like baritone voice and he's talking about, first of all, they want you to work for free. So they literally in this ad have a list of jobs that they want people to do for the community for free, like film editors and vegan chefs, and just all this stuff like that. And then, they're like, please be free of all debt, and we won't take you unless you're free of all debt and you don't have any child custody cases going on. So they're very specific with what they need.
And they kind of like other groups keep people working very hard and underfed. So that's another kind of standard approach of controlling groups.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of at a loss because the most recent person I've spoken to who's been there left like 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm not 100% sure what the state of the cult is circa 2021. But yeah, it's general, it's the playbook, working really hard. They don't seem to be malnourished these days, but it used to be the case where they were significantly underfed, and healthcare was really, was almost non-existent for a lot of the members. They've kind of like refined their thing a little bit. I think it's not so much the healthcare and the the food that suffers, or or maybe they get enough sleep now, but the group still has such a strong psychological hold on people. They underneath Gabriel, there's a series of elders, one of whom is named what is her name? For some reason it's Mariah. It's her name's Linda Cunningham, but it was changed by Gabriel to Mariah, a made-up cosmic name. And Linda Cunningham came from Synanon. She's a PhD psychologist, and she helps formulate a lot of these psychological games to keep people under his thumb.
Right. So Synanon is Dieterich, right, out of LA. So that's another controlling group. I actually did an interview with Paul Morantz, who Synanon sent the snake that bit him and poisoned his hand. He actually shook his hand that was injured on when I was talking to him, because I went and saw him in LA. But I did a 3-hour interview with him, and he knows everything about Dieterich and Synanon. But you see that kind of cult hopping too. Well, group hopping is maybe another way to put it. This lady, didn't she have some kind of connection to Jonestown too? So it was like Jonestown to Synanon to Urantia.
Well, that's not exactly. Well, there's two people that I interviewed for the book. One, Laura Johnston Cole, who was in Jonestown, and then went to Synanon before finally realizing that she was in cults and she had to get out of them, and has really become a well-spoken anti-cult activist. I met her when I was researching Jonestown years ago. And of course, once you get in this world, you keep meeting people that know each other. So I was talking to her and realized that she knew this Linda Cunningham from Synanon. So I interviewed her for the book, where, she gave me a lot of insight into who Linda Cunningham was. So it's like Linda then left Synanon. Synanon collapsed. It was shut down by the IRS essentially. And she went into private practice in California, and she still thought the world was going to end, and she was scared to death of that. So when she found Gabriel, she, really thought she found her guru. So she's kind of the connection from, a lot of Synanon therapeutic ideas, control ideas basically have been adopted by the GCCA through her.
Right. So you kind of see that similarity. And you talk about a Dateline investigation that was very interesting because it seemed like Gabriel thought it was going to be a great way to get some exposure, but they were very critical. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of like one thing that I think might get kind of lost when I explain these things. So I really hope people read the book and listen to the podcast. Is that like a lot of the crazy stuff that the cult leadership doesn't come from a place of strict cynical manipulation. It comes from a place where they have been in this bubble for so long. They really think that Gabriel is the leader, the greatest spiritual person in the world. And they really do think the world revolves around them. So although it seems absurd from the outside, it's actually quite understandable that Dateline would call him up and kind of fluff his ego a little bit and say, we want to come and interview you. And it wouldn't even wouldn't even occur to them that it was BS.
Right.
So,
of course you want to interview me. I'm the most important person in the world.
Exactly. So that happened in 1998, and it was really a disaster. It was like, they had producers go in with hidden cameras and captured Gabriel channeling space beings and threatening cult members and hitting on people and stuff. So yeah, that was really the first and only substantial media that they've gotten on a national level since then, which I just find kind of absurd because this guy's fascinating, and people there really need an advocate, people that are stuck there. But then again, I'm finding out right now there's a reason that everybody writes about Jonestown and those cults and Charles Manson, but don't write about Gabriel, because Gabriel will sue you. Jim Jones isn't around to sue you.
Right. So that's a different kind of environment. But the group, I think you said there were 50 members at any given time. So it's not really a
100,
huge 100. And they're all outside of Sedona or something. They're in
Tumacacri, which is 20 miles north of the Mexican border. And it's in the Santa Cruz River Basin. So it's actually very fertile and very nice for the desert, even in the middle of the summer. And they have agricultural concerns, so they're down there planting hemp and picking beans and raising goats.
Right. And I found it very interesting that there was a connection to this person, Michael Steinhardt. Can you tell the story of Michael Steinhardt and Shmuley Boteach and how they kind of intersected with this group?
Yeah, this is really bizarre. So basically, Gabriel, when you're in the community, you don't talk to Gabriel. Like, instead of having a ever meeting with him, what he would do is, when he was younger and he was in shape, he would like once a week get on his bike and ride around the compound and let everybody kind of gaze upon him from afar. But he got older and that kind of slowed down. But if you have money, or if he likes you for some reason, Gabriel will shine his light on you. So this Ben Damian Steinhardt, that's his spiritual name. He's a member of the community now, but a couple decades ago, he was just buying a house in Sedona, and he was out going for a walk, and it turned out he was looking at the house next door to Gabriel's. So him and Gabriel kind of struck up a conversation, and Gabriel, I'm assuming, found out that he was son of a billionaire, and his eyes got real wide. And next thing you know, he's in the community, and he's eating dinner at Gabriel's house all the time. And Gabriel saw a cash cow there. But this is going on, and this Ben Damian's father is Michael Steinhardt. He's a wealthy Jewish philanthropist. He's part of that Jewish philanthropic circle, the mega group. He has the ear of Bill Clinton and people in power, and he's the inventor of the hedge fund essentially. And he did not like the fact that his son was in a cult, so he went to great lengths to try to extricate himself. He started talking to ex-members of the community and flying them out to his office to talk to them about, the son and how to get his son out. And they came up with plans. And one of the plans, including the celebrity rabbi Shmuley Boteach, who started hanging out at the cult, which, Gabriel thought it was great because he would get a celebrity, not realizing that this was kind of a setup. And Shmuley and Michael and these ex-members really tried to inform people about the cult and then tried to get this guy's son out, and it just didn't work out. And as I understand it, I haven't documented this, so I'm just reporting what people are telling me. Essentially, Michael realized he couldn't fight Gabriel, so some sort of business transaction was made where Gabriel got a loan or something, and now Michael has access to his son. So his son's still in the cult, but his son can visit. He can get out, the family, because his son, Michael has a daughter-in-law and grandchildren in the community, so he has access to his kids. So in a very cynical way, it looks like Michael Steinhardt made a deal with the devil, and it's like, well, screw everybody else. They can, I can't stop the cult, so at least I can get what I want out of the cult, and the rest of you guys are just going to have to deal with it in Arizona. So it's a very bizarre chapter.
It's very strange, the whole situation, because Michael's dad, you write, Red Steinhardt was, friends with a lot of mobsters, and then Mega Group. He's in Mega Group with Wexler, Bronfman, Spielberg, to Epstein. I mean, it's a strange trail all the way out to, Gabriel Urantia.
Yeah, and it was something that I couldn't, definitively document to the extent that I could go into Epstein, for instance. But it was really worth noting to me because, these are the strange ways that power works. We had Gabriel of Urantia, who is a real stunning example of how power works, even though he's only working it on 100 to 120 people in the desert. And then you have kind of a mirror of his activities in Michael Steinhardt, who obviously has a much larger footprint.
Right. And I mean, there was an interesting element or part of that chapter where you're talking about how Boteach told Gabriel of Urantia this story, and the whole story was a myth, but Gabriel tells it back to him like he was telling him the truth. So that I think was very revealing about Gabriel of Urantia.
Oh yeah. There are a few times where Gabriel literally sets himself up for he's bragging about his clairvoyance, but then he gets all the facts wrong and is proven to be not clairvoyant. And again, that's a trap you walk into if you're full of yourself and don't, he really thinks he's clairvoyant. Apparently he really thinks he's a genius that knows what's going on in everybody's heart. Even though that's been misproven so many times now.
And there's a significant amount of this new age ideas are that they're channeling things. Like the book was channeled, but he's channeling all of these beings. You talk about Paladin and things like that. So he has this connection to these alter, kind of like Rampa. You talk about Rampa, Jay-Z Knight. Like he has a connection to these beings. Can you talk about that in detail?
Oh yeah, sure. So his claim to fame is not that he's like a super genius, but or that he's super spiritual, but that he has contact with celestial entities from the Urantia book, and he invented a term for it. He calls it, what is it? It's a fusion material complement or something. It's basically he invented his own term so he doesn't have to use the word channel, and so he conveniently claims that everybody else on the everybody else on the planet who channels is like taken over by fallen beings, but he's the legit channel.
Right. That's right.
And it just but he so his authority comes from talking to these figures, and they have what are called transmission ceremonies where the group gets together and then they play some kind of like new age music, and they light candles and turn the lights down low, and then he starts speaking in a funny voice. And throughout this whole endeavor, I've been dying to hear what that's like. There's a 30-second clip of him talking in character or channeling on the Dateline thing, and he's got this high squeaky voice, kind of like Mickey Mouse, but talking to people in the community, they have always said that a lot of times when he channels, he talks in a really deep voice, and they made it sound like Darth Vader or something. Like it was just really frightening and really believable. So I thought, this must be amazing. So after years and years, I was wrapping up this book, and I finally found somebody with a copy of a cassette of him channeling, which the community, deeply, very high security, trying to keep this out of people's hands. So I finally got this tape in the mail, and it was like, he sounded like Daffy Duck. I mean, it was just so bizarre. And it just really goes to show you how when you're wrapped up in this community and you're living this stuff and breathing this stuff, you just come to not face reality in a certain way. And like I said about the bubble, Gabriel thinks this is real, or he apparently does. He's been, people have been telling me that lately he's been slipping in and out of character. So he'll just randomly start channeling, and he'll have like real anger issues related. He has anger issues. He's channeling. He's very abusive. So it just really sounds like he's a broken man who's kind of acting out his last.
I mean, he's definitely older. I think he was born in the 40s, right? So he's definitely in the 70s, I think. And he also he swears sometimes during his sessions, and that's Pittsburgh or something. He says something ridiculous.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is such a big, important part of his life, which it's funny because it's kind of, I'm in Pittsburgh, and it's kind of a stereotype of people in Pittsburgh. They think the world revolves around Pittsburgh, and it's like, to this day, I've spoken to people who have never met him throughout his entire, never personally spoke to him throughout their entire, several years in this cult. But when Pittsburgh was in the Super Bowl, like they had a big party and everybody got to go to his house and meet him. I mean, it's a hilarious character. It's
right. And but he has very kind of florid, flowery things. Like it's the fifth epochal revelation that he's involved in.
Yeah.
He's receiving a mandate. So, I mean, there's this real importance that he's clothed himself in, right?
Yeah, everything's really like, everything has that flowery language. Everything's like cosmic legalese. Like one of his books that I got, you open it up, and instead of like a copyright, just a one sentence copyright thing, there's like a channeled 2-page document about the intergalactic perspective on copyright.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, his daughter Sanskrita, you talked to her, and there was really a promise of immortality. So he had really, there was pretty aggressive or very incredible promises of his power.
Yeah, and these things fail all the time, but obviously people in the community have died, but people have left. But he just, he says they failed. They failed him. That's why. Or the world doesn't end. God wants us to stick around a little longer. So it's, there's ways when you're wrapped up in this kind of psychodrama, I think it's very easy to forgive any contradictions, just because like this is your life, and like to turn your back on your leader is to turn your back on your life in a lot of ways.
Right. And I mean, I think he was like the center of everything. Can you explain? He had a very curious kind of sign with all the world's religions, and then the center of the pyramid and the all-seeing eye. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So I was visiting, they had a compound. They were headquartered in Sedona, but they couldn't get like a huge compound together where they could all live. So they found that at this ranch in Tumacacri down by the border. So they still own this property in Sedona, which used to be a garden, and now they use it as a campground where people can come and, spend however much money and stay for a few nights. And you go, so I visited that, and you go there and there's a sign. It says like one family, one tribe or something at the top. I'm going by memories. And in the center, there's Gabriel's symbol that came to him on a mountaintop near Pittsburgh. That it's a pyramid with like little dots in it and lines and stuff. It's supposed to symbolize like UFOs or something, or the Seven Sisters, the
Pleiades, right?
Yeah. But it's his, it's basically his symbol. And in the middle of it, that's a circle in the middle, and radiating out from it, there are all these symbols of like, the Christian religion and Muslim and, all these different faiths. And it's like really clearly, I'm at the center, all faiths are part of me. I am part of all faiths. So he really does think he's, the central figure in human spirituality. Even, he talks to people all the time, like members of Native American tribes and stuff. And he's always trying to bring them in, and he's always freaking out when he realizes they don't want to join him. He really thinks that the Hopi, for instance, should be part of his, should fall under his spell, right. And it's really obnoxious. It's just really insulting to like everybody who's not Gabriel, but he doesn't see that.
Right. I mean, it's and for people who don't know, Urantia is the word for earth, but from this, it's channeled book. So he's the, part of this. Do you have anything you'd like to add before we wrap this up? Anything I missed? Where's the best place to get the book?
Right now it's Amazon. It comes out in next Tuesday, the 24th. So if you pre-order it now, you should get it the day of its release. And yeah, I mean, we pretty much covered it. It's such a huge story that I wouldn't even know what else. It's just, I find it, the story is, the devil is in the details, so to speak. There's so much more that goes into operating a group like this and creating a belief system and controlling people than, we'd be able to touch upon in 40 minutes. So,
no, you're right. And there's a lot more. All your interviews with former members are in the book and their experiences. And, there's more about, we didn't even get into the child abuse, which gets pretty dark.
Yeah.
But where's, are you on social media? Do you have Twitter or website?
Yeah. At Lenny Flatley is my Twitter, and lennyflatley.net is my website. And you'll have links to all my books and all my podcasts and a ton of articles I've done. And I'm really trying to get people to sign up for my newsletter. It's called Failed State Update, and it's a in-depth look at a lot of these kind of cult, conspiracy, parapolitical topics. So lennyflatley.substack.com. But if you go to my website, all the links are there, and I'm sure the website will be in the show notes.
And that's lenny.flatley.com, right? Is that what you said?
lennyflatley.net.
Oh, one more, .net. Sorry, Lenny Flatley. I'll put that in the show notes.
Right.
And a really interesting book. I mean, really fascinating. It's just another cult. But this Urantia concepts were really something else. So again, the title of the book is New Age Grifter, True Story of Gabriel of Urantia and His Cosmic Family by Jospeh L. Flatley, published next week, August 24th, 2021. So go get the book. Thanks a lot, Lenny.
Thanks, man. I really enjoy the show, and it's a thrill to get to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you on. Take care.
Take care.
All right, stay there.